Rock and Roll Grad School with your hosts Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
Hello, kiddies. Welcome.
Welcome. Are we not going to have a good time today?
We might. Who knows? It's really up in the air at this point.
True. You're going to have a time today.
You're going to have a time, yes. No, we've got a good one. We are talking with Greg Gilmore, who he was somebody that when we got the email saying, do you want to talk with Greg Gilmore? I think we both said, why do I know that name?
Yes.
And lo and behold, that's not the right phrase. Greg was the drummer for a bunch of bands.
Yes.
Including Mother Love Bone.
Yes.
Which I feel like if you grew up in the same era in which we did, that means a lot and carries a lot of weight.
It does. And the second we realized that that's where we recognized his name from, in addition to these other bands, we were extremely fired up to talk to him.
Yes. And Greg, the cool thing about this conversation is that we were talking about his band before Mother Love Bone. I think 2 bands before. We get into it, which one came first, Five Finger Death Punch or The Living.
Right.
But The Living was a early punk band that he was in together for, I think he said 6 months, recorded an album. Just so happened to have their lead singer, I believe, and songwriter be Duff McKagan from
Guns N' Roses, lots
of
other amazing bands. So complete legends coming together very young, creating a punk sound.
Yeah, and this band has such a great history of supporters and fans of other well-known musicians who have throughout the years tried to make this album come out, and now finally the stars have aligned where you can actually enjoy it.
Yes.
And so The Living is coming out on Friday. And it's a fun little punk record.
It is.
I was going to say it sounds like it was recorded in 1983, but I think it was recorded in 1983.
Yes, or very close there too.
So it's similar in some ways to one of my favorite reviews of the first Ramones album said, it might have been Kurt Loder, who said that it's a great record because it's loud and fast, and by the time the cops or your landlord show up to say shut it off, the album's over. And I think you can say the exact same thing about this. Like, it's loud, it's fast, and it's over before the complaint gets to you. So
correct.
That's kind of perfect.
You can just enjoy it and have fun and rock out.
Yeah.
Unscathed.
And by the time someone's pounding on their ceiling with a broom handle, record's over. You're eating Cheetos.
Right.
So that's always fun.
Eating Cheetos? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yes, exactly.
The hot ones, for sure.
I have been unable to get the order straight. Were you in 10-minute warning and then The Living, or The Living and then 10-minute warning?
The Living first. The Living was really the beginning of all things for me in Seattle. Joining that band, I had not been playing and really didn't have much of a social scene here till those guys had put an ad in the Rocket. There's a local entertainment music rag, and I answered that and joined right away, and that was the beginning of it's a big group of instantly had a lot of new friends and part of a larger community, and great band.
You're in The Living. You guys are playing around Seattle. Are you doing any other kind of treks in any direction outside of the city to do shows?
I think our only trip out of town was up to Vancouver. And just once or we might have gone up there a couple times. I don't think I don't remember that we ever even went down to Portland. The whole thing, it lasted about 5 or 6 months. So we really, arguably, we're just kind of getting going, though it seemed like we kind of had it going on.
And in that time frame of those 5 or 6 months, at what point did you guys go into the studio to record what is your new album?
It must have been right around the middle of it. We, with the help of talking to Kurt Block yesterday, who had some old calendars and diaries with dates in them, he was helping me. We were piecing some of this together. I must have joined sometime in January because we were together for less than a year, and I was there for Duff's birthday, so that would have been February. And by that time, I was firmly just a part of the scene there in that group of people. So I had to have been there for a few weeks already. So I probably started playing sometime in January, and Kurt says our last show was in July, I think he said. So, and we probably called it off not too long after that show. I was guessing within a month.
What prompted that?
Well, John left the band, and the three of us, we made an effort to carry on for a little bit, and I don't remember a lot of detail of it. I remember one other guitar player friend we had come over to play one day, and he might have come over to play a couple of times before we had to tell him that
it's not happening.
Otherwise, I don't. All I remember is kind of the one day of being there at practice, and it must have been just the three of us, and just the feeling of the pool had kind of drained,
Yeah.
And it was a moment where maybe the more grown-up or seasoned bands would have recognized that, okay, the picture is bigger than this moment, and let's let's take a break for a few days or regroup in some way. But at that time, the solution to that feeling was just, let's not do this anymore.
Yeah.
Let's just burn this down.
Yep, we're done.
So then you record this album, you guys break up, you go on to a bunch of different things, which I definitely want to get into. But how did this record come about now? It's 30 some years after you recorded it, after you guys played together and sat in the same room together, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we did it old style. We actually played together. Yeah.
How does this come about where this is what we're talking about now?
Yeah. It's been a project for me now of about, it must be right around 8 years. The Living sort of had a manager, Brian Fox, who in the ensuing years has harbored the same affection for that recording as I had. And he had some kind of a chance meeting or crossing of paths with a couple of kids from Portland who had started or wanted to do a boutique sort of label, and somehow it came to be that, well, let's make a living record. And John had the multi-tracks, John Conti.
Mm-hmm.
And he had them transferred digitally, and I got a hold of the files and mixed it. Then that deal came undone, and a year and a half later, I contacted another old friend of mine who used to work for Money at Mother Love Bone, and he had a label also in Portland called Cavity Search Records, and it wasn't really a project for him, but he hooked us up with Jackpot and Lighthouse Records, which yes would have been a great place for that kind of record. That was the idea at the time. But that was, everything was happening. I had remixed the material and put artwork together, and it was just about to be shipped off, and that deal got blown up. That was really frustrating for me.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of, at that, I just shut it down and walked away from it for a time at that point. Then it might have been a couple of years before I went out to lunch with Stone one day, and he's asking me what I've been up to, and among other things, I told him my tale of woe over this record that should be, but didn't seem like it would be. And he wanted to hear it. I sent him some files, and he loved it, and he thought, well, Sub Pop. So he sent it to Mark Arm, and Mark hooked us up with another A&R guy there who I eventually went down and spent an afternoon with, and okay, we're all glad handing, and this is going to be great. And just coming into the holiday season at that time, so nothing was going to happen for a while, and nothing did, and we weren't even communicating through that time. Then the new year came, and we still weren't communicating, and I was not making any effort either, because I just had a feeling about it, so I was just letting it ride. And then I should ask Stone and Regan how that came to be that they reached out. I'm pretty sure the way it happened, they just, out of the blue, it seemed, they just reached out, maybe to ask what was happening with the Sub Pop thing, and they, next thing you know, they want to do it. And as it turns out, after all that tribulation and frustration, this really is the best. This situation outstrips anything that those other deals would have done. This is way bigger. It's getting more attention. And,
I feel like just from an outsider, obviously, but I feel like the reception, there's been a lot of excitement and it's great. Like it made me so happy for all the wrong reasons when I listened to it, and everything I've been reading and researching, and everyone has been really excited about it, which I think is great, and so it was worth the wait, hopefully.
Yeah. Now I'm just curious to see what's going to happen, because it had
right.
It's gone beyond my hopes, even for what might happen with it. Up to this point, I was happy just when it was somebody was going to print a record, let alone actually try to do something to sell it. And, yeah, it's already way bigger than I anticipated that it might be or could be. So now I'm just watching fascination and curiosity.
So if you go back to that moment when you kind of knew, like, we're done with this. If someone had said the Great Gazoo or someone showed up and said, you're going to get an album, but you're going to have to wait 30 years, but you're going to do a bunch of really cool shit between now and then, would you have been like, cool, all right, we'll go do this shit and come back together? Or would you have been like, no, fuck it, we're still done?
Yeah, we could not have pulled it back together regardless. It was too we were just kids, just kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
And that's probably explains a lot of how we just dropped it and walked away from
Mm-hmm.
at the time.
For sure.
And what's it like to hear, well, one, when you kind of dig the tapes up again, or you get the copy of the tapes, to put that on, and does it jibe with your memory? Like you said, you had these fond recollections of the record and the band. When you put those files up and listen to them, were you like, yeah, this lives up to what I remembered?
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's it like to hear yourself too as an artist so far and so like much matured, both physically but also just musically? At least one would hope one has improved their job and their skill set in the ensuing years.
It isn't how I most likely would not play that way today, just because you change and
Mm-hmm.
That's possibly not for the better, that you grow up in some way when you become even when it comes down to your musical performance, you become more responsible and less fuck you, check this out.
Do you feel that same way when you listen to the Mother Love Bone stuff now? Do you still have that like, it's different than I play it now?
That is, that's different. Different aspects of it, kind of not so much about the performance, but it took me a long time to appreciate the sound of that record.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it wasn't until I started engineering and mixing myself that I really appreciated how that record was mixed. I think the drums are really loud. That's a whole other. I could go on a tangent about mixing and how I see that it in that case it works. But in terms of the performance, I don't know that I would. I am now in some ways critical of where I was going at that time, of just doing a lot of recording and really getting solid and simplifying and possibly to a fault,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But though right at that moment, it was fine.
This might say more about me than it does about you, but when I hear Crown of Thorns, it is like the perfect drum along in the car song.
Oh yeah.
What do you do when you hear that song in the car? Where does it take you?
I really, it could be that my favorite moment in that recording is near the end where we're playing the outro and you slowly are going for it a little more, and I do a tom thing which was way harder. I was playing harder um, than I had been when we were getting levels, so the recording is the drums are distorted right there. Sadly, that bothered some. Maybe that was I guess Tim Palmer probably remixed. Did he remix that for the LP, or whether it was remixed or just edited? Now I'm not certain. But on a later version of that, right when that happens, the fader it fades out.
Like, nope. Just fade that right out. Oh.
Okay, you should just leave it alone. Just leave it there. It's fine. It's fine. So frustrating, but yeah, I don't know. I don't. It's been a long time since I would have heard any of that record in my car. So, but I know that I love that moment because in that moment you've played a piece of music so many times, you start to really dial in, and then often, in many cases, you're becoming very specific about what you're going to play, when and where, and often, likewise, those outros, at least in my case, you tend to leave that alone, and you just wait for lightning to strike, and and there was something in that fill. Was a moment where I just was. It wasn't something I had played there before, and it was really happening, and it was really right and felt great.
Great outro cannot be beat. And I feel like outros get the shaft, but a great outro can really just nail it for a song, I feel.
It kind of, it can pull. There were two Mother Love Bone songs that I think had great outros, and the story of how they happened is super cool. That is Come Bite the Apple and Stardog Champion. And in both cases, we had a song, and we used to go to a little local 8-track place, Reciprocal, and record a lot. Whenever we had a batch of new material, just even if it was still pretty loose, just to kind of go. It's part of the process of finding out what you got.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those songs they didn't go anywhere, after the last verse or chorus. But we knew they needed to go somewhere. And I don't remember whether or not it was in the same session or not. But he was in doing those demos at Reciprocal that in both cases, we played the song. And we came to that point, all knowing that something has to happen here. And we just kept playing, even without having anything, just kept playing anyway. And that's how both of those outros got tagged up to the end of those tunes. And I think they're both awesome.
They're great. That's fantastic. I love that. I love stuff that's just so organic like that, where it just happens. Wasn't thought out, just came to be.
Yeah.
Super cool.
With both Andy and Stone in Mother Love Bone and Duff in The Living, as songwriters, when they bring stuff in, how open are they to you throwing in your 2 cents? And is one much more militant about nope, you're not messing with this, this is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. No, I've never had to deal with that, or at least not in a situation that I stayed in.
Like, nope.
Yeah, wouldn't
Try to
work.
resolve it.
Wouldn't work for me to play with somebody like that, unless I was being paid really well, I guess.
Everyone has their price. I mean, it hurts a lot less
Yeah.
annoying.
In both of those cases, that the band always in the final arrangements was working together to shape something up.
And you've done a lot of work, sort of post Mother Love Bone, playing with a bunch of different musicians, and like you said, engineering and producing records. How has your playing changed since you've gotten more involved on the production side of things, as you know what it takes to get a good recording of something?
Yeah, quite a bit. Kind of. I know. Changed my playing, maybe not so much as just as my attitude toward I did a specific would be long running struggle between engineers and drummers about how much damping or muffling there should be on a snare drum. I have always played with a very live snare drum, and I know that it works or can work because I listen to a lot of records made by other people. It works for them. I love the sound of it, and I had in some situations been able to do it, and same thing. It sounds great, but every once in a while you would work with an engineer that first thing they want you to do is tape your wallet onto the drum. Go! Who are you? Don't you know? That's my thing. Right there. That's the common outburst by a greenhorn player. Man, that's my thing.
Why'd you pick drums?
I don't know. It could. I hate this. My dad was a drummer, and it could be that. By the time I was around, he was not playing. Though there were still drums in the attic, because I remember somebody coming to the house one day to buy them. But I know he lived in that house until I was 5 years old, so I was somewhere younger than 5 when that happened. I had never seen him play, but he was incessantly banging on whatever, anything, and and whenever he and my mom were getting ready to go out, and he would be ready and waiting, he invariably would crank up some Creedence Clearwater. And so I don't know if it seems likely that there was some influence, but,
Sure.
Yeah, I did. I played them through also in school concert band.
Okay.
That I started out in the 5th grade playing cornet. Soon moved to drums, which was not the right move. I ended up then playing in the drum sections all the way through high school, and I could have spent that time playing another instrument and playing drums on my own, because I don't think there was anything that I learned from playing drums in that situation that I applied to.
Yeah, but the drum section is always, for all the crap that the band gets in high school, the drum section always is considered cool. Like, they always, no matter what, Like everybody else.
Yeah.
And like the cornet section's not really known for pulling it down. Let's
Right.
be
Like
honest.
the cornets don't really like.
That's true.
So
That's true. Yeah. And I guess that's true that as far as the other students were concerned, the drum section was kind of cool, but in both cases, in junior high and high school, the fucking drum section was a necessary evil.
right, that's okay.
And we got to, in high school, I got to contrast that and really see what it could be when we did for a quarter, maybe. We had a guy come from, there was a university not far away that I guess among other things, they were known for their music program. And we had a guy come from that program to, I don't know, was that interning or
yeah,
something, yeah.
doing a residency for a
yeah.
for a quarter, and it was for the fall quarter that he came to work with our high school concert band. And this guy was into drums, and he also had a temper problem.
Perfect.
So yeah, we were used to being ignored and conducted ourselves with little discipline. And this guy, he paid a lot of attention and was not down with our ways. But there was still something in that. I remember getting a little bit out of that. All right, this guy kind of takes what we're doing up here seriously. It gave it a whole, shine a whole different light. And I also remember, and I don't remember, it was not that he paid particular attention to the drum section when we were marching, but that was a thing that mercifully in junior high and the high school, the regular band directors were not into marching. They would drag us out to, there were a couple of local parades that we had to do almost, kind of by obligation. And otherwise, they were not into that. But this guy, that intern, that was another thing that he wanted to do. And oh man, when we were out on the field, it was not just the drum section; it was the whole band that had his neck just bulging in fury, smashing the drum major's baton into the ground with rage.
I wonder if that guy went back and changed his major.
Yeah,
I wonder if he was bio major instead.
I have no idea what happened to him after that. Yeah, I wonder how he processed that experience after. Right. Yeah.
The Living's 1982 is available this coming Friday, April 16th, both digitally and on vinyl, and you can pick that up wherever you get your records.
You can follow us on all the various socials. You can check out our website at rockandrollgradschool.com for more grad school content. And please leave us a review on iTunes. We're tired of asking our family members to do so.
Today's show was produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. Our graphic designer is Samantha Mastonen. This one's for Philippe. Thank you, good night, and may all your favorite bands stay together.